Um, so I'm recording it for Zach and for Avi. Um, but people have said openly, like to me in a conversation, um, the 450,000 people that died from COVID under Donald Trump are all a direct result of Donald Trump. Donald Trump killed 400,000 people. Like I had someone in a conversation tell me he has more blood in his hands than Osama bin Laden. So people believe this. And if that guy who I was talking to who told me that had COVID and was on his deathbed, he would say this is Donald Trump's doing. So what I'm saying is we have to be careful. The second now, Hitler was horrible. Like I hopefully I don't need to like say that as like a disclaimer in the front. Of course, it's Adolf Hitler. But unless we understand that we have elements in ourselves to see other human beings, our brothers and sisters, as something other, or push a narrative that is not it could be not remotely true at all, or not completely true, or just partially true, or leaving out important nuance. It's all dangerous. And that's, I think, the thing that we learn from Adolf Hitler. When bad things happen in your life, when you go through a terrible breakup, when someone close to you passes away, like there's a lot of horrible things that could happen in your life. You got to always look for the lesson in it. Like you're feeling all this pain. What are you going to do with that pain? If you lose someone close to you, well, you're going to turn that pain into maybe being a softer, kinder person to the people in your life now. You're going to tell them how you feel when you didn't get a chance to, or something like that. So you got to look at the terrible things that happened in history, terrible people in history, and you go, okay, how did they get that way? I don't want to get that way. And that's what we do. That's why learning about someone like Adolf Hitler is very useful. And if you ignore that element of him, you just say that he's a monster, and you just do that, then you're not gonna you never see yourself as a monster. That was the whole point of that project. But it's a weird thing to talk about, let alone at a Jewish school, but just in general, like about like we should understand Hitler, Joseph Mengele, like these people, because you don't want to. And it's not a pleasurable experience to go, how can I see myself in the worst people in history? It's not a pleasurable experience. Am I capable of hurting people or killing people if I was given that power? If I was put in a certain situation with cheering faces all around me, could I do that? Like no one wants to do that, so we don't do it, but I think we should. I think that's how we make sure that we are good people, is by recognizing that we could be bad people. And then we have a choice and we choose to be good people. I don't know. It's kind of the way I think about it. Yeah, Geta, and then I got to move on with class.
Yeah, I just had another question,
Yeah.
sort of, about the Japanese internment camps. I was thinking about it, and it kind of feels like, well, they were basically putting away, like locking up and like killing Japanese Americans.
Yeah.
Because of basically
not killing.
speculation.
Not killing.
Oh, not killing.
No.
Okay.
No, they didn't
but
kill.
wasn't it basically speculation because of why they were doing it? Because they were like paranoid?
Yeah. They were scared. No, they didn't kill them. The birth rate, like when you look at these camps, it looks like an Auschwitz or like a Dachau or something like that, but it's not. I mean, the birth rate actually went up at these camps. Like the Japanese American people were there, they were bored, they made babies. The birth rate at Auschwitz was not a thing. They killed people. They systematically killed people. So it's not the same. And again, this is where we go too far with making equivalencies to Nazism or something like that. People say that, the children being kept at the border is a modern day, concentration camp like they had in Nazi Germany. It's like, no, it's not. No, it's not. Well, come on, they're being held in barracks. Well, yeah, but that's not. So we have to just try, like, in one way, sure, it's similar, but in a much more accurate way, no, it's not. And I think that's kind of what I get to. And that's maybe this can be confusing for you guys. I don't mean to confuse you. Like when I say that we all have like certain prejudices or prejudgments or something like that. Maybe we have like racist thoughts in our mind pop up from time to time. Like that's something that is similar to these horrible people, but it's also quite different because you're not actively trying to hurt anybody or anything like that. So it's a weird kind of tension that I want you guys to kind of play with in your heads a little bit, just to recognize elements of yourself in these historical characters. But the Japanese people were detained. They weren't killed, but they did have guns on them. They did. I'm gonna get back to the Japanese internment camp stuff. Here is where we left off, I believe. So there were soldiers fighting in the war while their families were here, locked up in camps. So the BA of the day. You know what BA stands for? It's a bad word. Where is everybody? Why do we only have 7 people in class? Is it because it's early? Eli, are you there?
I
Hassan,
am
you there?
here. I am here.
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, all right. You know what BA means? Like someone's like a tough BA Baracus was on the A team. No, it means like badass, like tough guy. Okay, so who is the badass of the day? This guy, Dan Inouye. Maybe not what you pictured. Maybe you're thinking of someone who looks like Dwayne Johnson, but no, this is Dan Inouye. Way more of a badass than Dwayne Johnson or the Transporter or anyone like that. Okay, he's a Congressional Medal of Honor winner, which is the highest award that you can give a military soldier. And he was also a long-standing senator. Just passed away real recently, but he was a long-standing United States senator out of Hawaii. Listen to Dan Inouye's story. He wasn't allowed in the military because he was Japanese. He was American, but he was Japanese descent. Petitioned and petitioned and petitioned and was finally allowed in. It's kind of like, I want to go to whatever, NYU, and they say no, and you just keep saying like, I want to get in. Then every semester you try, you go to junior colleges, keep trying to get in because that's your dream. His dream was to fight and defend the Stars and Stripes in America. They said, no, you can't do it. No, we don't want you. No, we don't want you. No, we don't want you. And finally, they're like, all right, fine. So he goes to war. Ready for his story? I'm going to read it. Here we go. This is a Thompson submachine gun, part of the story. This is a hand grenade, pineapple grenade, part of the story. Here we go. On April 21st, 1945, Inouye was grievously wounded while leading an assault on a heavily defended ridge near San Terenzo in Liguria, Italy, called the Col Mastello. So he got injured in battle. Okay, so he's an injured guy, but he was fighting. The ridge served as a strong point of the German fortifications known as the Gothic Line, the last and most unyielding line of the German defense works in Italy. He was fighting the Nazis in Italy, and it was their last kind of position, the Nazis, okay? As his platoon in a flanking maneuver, he led his platoon at the flanking maneuver, 3 German machine guns opened fire from covered positions 40 yards away, pinning his men to the ground, shooting machine guns at him. Inouye stood up to attack and was shot in the stomach, right in his stomach. Okay. When informed of the severity of his wound, ignoring the wound, he proceeded to attack and destroy the first machine gun nest with hand grenades and his Thompson submachine gun. So he got shot in the stomach and kept fighting despite being shot in the stomach. When informed of the severity of his wound, he refused treatment and rallied his men for an attack on the second machine gun position, which he successfully destroyed before collapsing from blood loss. So he got 2 of the 3 machine gun nests after being shot in the stomach and wounded even before that. And then he collapsed because he was bleeding out. As his squad distracted the 3rd machine gunner, Inouye crawled toward the final bunker, coming within 10 yards. As he raised himself up to cock his arm back to throw his last grenade, a German soldier inside the bunker fired a rifle grenade, which struck his right elbow, nearly severing most of his arm and leaving his prime grenade, he pulled the pin out already, reflexively clenched in the fist of his fist that suddenly did not belong to him anymore. So he got his arm blown off, but it was still holding the grenade. Okay? Inouye's horrified soldiers moved to his aid, but he shouted for them to keep back out of fear his severed fist would involuntarily relax and drop the grenade. While the German inside the bunker reloaded his rifle, Inouye pried the live grenade from his useless hand and transferred it to his left hand. As the enemy soldier aimed his rifle, Inouye tossed the grenade into the bunker and destroyed it. He stumbled to his feet and continued forward, silencing the last German resistance with one-handed bursts from his Thompson submachine gun. So he had it in his left hand, shooting his machine gun, before being wounded in the leg and then tumbling unconscious to the bottom of the ridge. He awoke to see the worried men of his platoon hovering over him. His only comment before being carried away was to order them back to their positions, saying nobody called off the war. Here he is, right before he died, just recently. Now, here's the thing. We didn't want him. The United States military said, nope, you're not a soldier that we want. You don't want this guy. If this was in a movie scene, you would go, come on, stop it. Stop it, come on. You can't get shot that many times and still be tough and still knock people out with a machine gun. But it's real. And we didn't want him because we didn't think Japanese people would be good for our country. This is why racism is a self-defeating mindset. If you start saying that I don't like this person or that person because of their gender or because of their race, because of their religion, something like that, you will miss out on the best. And what you want are the best. You want the best people. You want the best professors to teach you. You want the best politicians to run the country. You want the best military leaders. You want the best entertainers. You want the best innovators. If you say stop giving white men positions of power, then let's take all this power away from Elon Musk. Are you insane? We want Elon Musk to be building all kinds of crazy cool stuff. If you say, I don't think black women have anything positive to teach me, and I have a media company. You don't think Oprah Winfrey could teach you about a media company? She built a billion dollar company out of nothing in the entertainment business. So what you should do is discriminate based on ability. You discriminate based on the content of character. This is a Martin Luther King thing. You judge people by who they are, not what they are. I thought that was pretty cool story. And here is the Japanese internment camp. This is what they looked like. Why Japanese and not German or Italian? Why did they do this? We were at war with the Germans. We were at war with the Italians. Germans were Nazis. Why didn't we do this to the Germans? Yeah, you just say it.
Because the Japanese actually came and attacked America.
So partially, that they actually attacked us and it was a surprise. Yeah, I think that's probably part of it. Also, it's easier to differentiate them from the rest of society. That's part of it. It's like, you guys are Jewish, but like, I don't know, Eli and Geta, you guys are both Jewish, but like, you guys don't look alike. But Shava, like, you're Jewish, but do you look like, you and Julia and Geta, you're three Jewish girls. You all look very different. And all of you could just cover up that you're Jewish. You could. Geta, you just start speaking Spanish and move, east a little bit in LA. People just assume that you're just, another Hispanic girl in LA. And you can cover up your, now you shouldn't. I'm not saying this is good. I love your pride in your people and everything like that. What I'm saying is you can cover it up. You can. The Germans and Italians can just be like, no, not German, not Italian. Japanese people don't have that luxury. Black people don't have it. You can't be like, no, I'm not black. That's where passable comes in. The lighter skin you are, the more you can. And this is an element of racism, is when it's easier to tell one person from another, even though we're all human, we have the same kind of genetics, very similar kind of genetics. We're all the same as far as human genetics. We can all mate with each other, for example. But when it's easy to differentiate one from the other, then it's easier to have them be the other. And that's an element of it as well. So yes, it was that we were attacked. And then yes, it was also the element of racism. So, look, in Section 1 of the Constitution, Article 14 of the United States Constitution says all persons born or naturalized in the United States are citizens of the United States. And we can't enforce any law which abridges the privileges and immunities, deprive life, liberty, or property without due process of law. It says it. It's very clearly laid out in the Constitution. So how do they do this? Well, because the government breaks the government rules. And what do you do? What do you do when the police break the law? Who do you call? But these men and women were put behind barbed wire in cages, and it was unconstitutional. Clearly unconstitutional. Constitution, circling back, is the rule book. So how does that happen? How does that happen that the government, who made the rule book, who their whole job is to hold up the rule book? If you watch the inauguration, Kamala Harris and Joe Biden, they say, my duty to uphold the Constitution. So how did this happen? How is it that they're still spying on you? Edward Snowden revealed that. The United States government is spying on you, violating your Fourth Amendment rights right now. It's going on. How does that happen? Well, because we don't fight back. We don't tell our government to stop it. But this happened. These are photographs of it. It's very real. Fred Korematsu. Now, here's another awesome person that you should know. Okay. Fred Korematsu. Fred Korematsu was a young man, and when he was told, go into the camp, he's like, no. I'm like, what do you mean no? He's like, no, this is unconstitutional. Absolutely not. I don't have to go to a jail cell because of my race. I'm an American citizen. And he fought it. He went to court for this because they tried to arrest him, went all the way up to the Supreme Court of the United States, and the Supreme Court said Japanese internment camps are okay. What? How? It's so clearly not okay. Because our country screws up. That's how. This is our Supreme Court of the United States saying racism is okay. It's why it's important to bring up, be following along with government actions. And when the government does something really bad, you call it out. You bring attention to it. You call your representatives. Look, the actions of the people who locked up Japanese Americans, it was understandable. There was fear. And when you have fear, you push for things that you know are wrong. I'm not justifying it, but when you are scared, you say, protect me, protect me, protect me. You either have freedom or you have security. But you can't really have both. You can't have freedom and security. My kids are secure. They're not free. I tell them when to go to bed, when to wake up, what to eat, when to eat. But I know where they're at. And the scary thing for your parents is, all right, see you, mom, see you, dad, whatever, I'm out, I'm leaving. That's scary. But you're testing your freedom. And when security goes away, when you go out to the street, you're hanging out with friends on a Sunday afternoon, and you get harassed by some dude in the park, or you get robbed, or you get in a car accident, the instinct of your parents is you're staying inside, you're never leaving again, because they're scared, because they love you. It's that fear, and they say, I'm going to take away your freedom. You get grounded. That's taking away your freedom. So it's understandable. Not okay, but understandable. This is war hysteria, the need for control. And that leads to injustice. That's how we got the Patriot Act. Of course, the Patriot Act, where they're allowed to spy on everything we do, basically, came after 9/11 because people were scared. And they said, we don't want another terrorist attack ever. If my kid goes out, or let's say you guys go out to a park and you get harassed by some creepy dude. This could go for ladies or guys, okay? You get sexually harassed by some creepy dude. Your parents might be like, you're never going to the park again, because I don't want that ever to happen to you again. And that's the control element. And that's unjust. You're teenagers. You're supposed to go out. You're supposed to be social. You're supposed to get into trouble. But it's scary when you're loved. So the same thing kind of goes for a country. You know, a big problem is it wasn't supported by logic or evidence. It was supported by a feeling, not the evidence, not logic, a feeling. Now, this gets us to another thing. It is super dangerous, super duper dangerous to look at facts, look at data, and say, no, that's not what it feels like. I am going to go with a different narrative. Now, this happens from different perspectives. This happened with the election fraud. Okay? Our federal judges, many federal judges said, no, there's not enough evidence here to push any kind of trial. The Supreme Court, even with 3 Trump appointees, said, no, there's nothing here to show any kind of widespread voter fraud that would overturn the election. But what happened to the people who stormed the Capitol? They said, no, I don't care about that evidence. It doesn't feel that way. I feel something different in my heart. This doesn't feel right. This is injustice. I need to do something. This attack that happened in Atlanta, the shooter himself said it wasn't racially motivated. It was motivated by this crazy sex addiction and stuff like that. He was a disturbed dude. Okay? But I got into a long conversation with someone just last night that was like, nope, he doesn't know what he's talking about. It was racially motivated. It's an issue of white supremacy. You're not going to look at the data. Okay, then you have a narrative that you want to push your narrative. Okay, but it's dangerous. And I gave you an example from the left, an example from the right. Okay, we're all capable of doing this, and we were capable of doing this during the Japanese internment camps. They said, look, Japanese Americans are not a threat. And they go, they feel like a threat. You might have missed something. You don't see it. Your study isn't good. They justify it to push their agenda. And that's what happened, and we still do it today. You need to look at data. Data is flawed for sure. Statistics are flawed for sure. But it's something. It's a map. Even a bad map is better than no map at all. No map at all, you're just wandering around. At least a bad map, you have a direction to go in, and you can start analyzing what's bad about it. But you gotta use data for this stuff, not just a feeling. Do you know the statistics about the increase in Asian hate crime? Do you know who's committing a lot of it? Why they're committing a lot of it? I think that's important information to know so we can actually prevent stuff from happening in the future. If you're actually trying to prevent another Japanese attack like Pearl Harbor, you need dudes like Dan Inouye going overseas and being badasses, killing people with machine guns, not locking them up. You want to stop mass shooting attacks, then you listen to the mass shooter about why they did it, and you try and look for other people who had similar patterns beforehand. That's what you do. That's how you make society better. That's how we advance. Look at where these camps were. It's here, the West Coast. This is where they're at. This fear causes un-American behavior before. Okay, the Palmer raids. Remember that? You remember the Palmer raids? Okay, the assimilation of Native Americans, where we turned the Native Americans and made them look white. Reconstruction happened. You know, the fear over, black people getting power, so the KKK came together and started putting guns to people's heads, lynching them, things like that. We've learned about this stuff. It happened since the 1940s. Oh yeah. Operation Wetback was during World War II. We brought over a lot of Mexican farmers to do the farming while American men were overseas fighting in the war. And then after the war, we just sent them all back. We deported them, even though they came in legally, started families here, got their kids enrolled in schools here. We did a massive deportation when they helped us get through the war. The Civil Rights Movement, the Patriot Act, random airport searches. Random airport searches. You know, where certain kids that shall have it probably get stopped more than other kids. Let's just assume that, right? You know, if you're Persian, you probably get stopped more than if you're Ashkenazi, for example. Here's some famous victims. The guy who played Mr. Miyagi, Pat Morita, he spent time in a Japanese internment camp. George Takei, who was on Star Trek, and he's like an activist now, LGBTQ activist. He was in a Japanese internment camp. Here's George Takei talking about his experience. Pretty interesting. Powerful.
That stereotype of Asian Americans as the enemy was all too real for George Takei from his very youngest days growing up in Los Angeles.
I remember that morning, and in fact, I can never forget that morning. It was a terrifying morning. I was in the living room looking out the front window, and I saw two soldiers come marching up our driveway. And I saw at the end of their rifles shiny bayonets. They stomped up to our front door at our two-bedroom home on Garnet Street in Los Angeles and banged on the front door. It was terrifying. My father answered, and we were ordered out of our home.
George Takei's family had committed no crime. Along with thousands of other law-abiding Japanese Americans, they were taken from their home in California in 1942 and forced to relocate to an internment camp. The reason was this. On December 7th, 1941, Japan bombed the U.S. Navy base at Pearl Harbor. Overnight, America was at war with Japan, and the U.S. government became suspicious of anyone of Japanese heritage. As a group, these U.S. citizens were labeled by their government as enemy non-aliens.
What's a non-alien? That's a citizen.
Citizen.
They couldn't even call us citizens then. We were enemy non-aliens. Why? Because of this. We were taken to the horse stables. And thinking back now, I can't imagine how degrading and humiliating it must have been for my parents to take their three children, one a baby, from a two-bedroom home and told to sleep in that narrow, smelly horse stall. I remember the barbed wire fences and the sentry tower, the searchlight that followed me when I made the night runs from our barrack to the latrine. It was a racist act, pure and simple, and it was an unconstitutional act. I mean, you can't imprison people for their race, and that's what we were imprisoned for.
That's spot, guys. They locked them up in prison for their race. Like, it's not that long ago. It's not that long ago. Your grandparents might have been alive then. Like, this is crazy. And we did it here on American soil. And if we did it before, we could do it again. Don't think we can. He actually made a musical for you musical people. I don't know if there's like any musical theater people, but he made a musical. Lea Salonga is in it, called Allegiance, about his time in the internment camps. Those who cannot remember the past are condemned to repeat it. Here's the thing, though. It won't happen like this. That's not the way history repeats itself. You know, like they don't go, oh, well, we overinvested in stock, so we're going to do that again. No. And then they just turn it to, we're going to overinvest in housing. That's how it repeats itself. We're not going to lock up Japanese people maybe, but we will lock up what? Whatever it is. So whoever gets viewed as the other. So be careful. If you listen to Fox News, look at who they're calling the other. If you listen to CNN, look at who they're calling the other, that are your fellow Americans. Okay? We're getting divided as good people and bad people, good humans, bad humans. The other, even though they are American citizens, they are considered the other. Is racially profiling okay? Well, shall have it. This is a couple of years ago. It's 2015, so I know it's a while ago. Okay, but in 2015, they asked us at Shall Have It. Now we're talking about not long ago at all. Mr. Feld, who was a teacher at Shall Have It, was awesome. Hold on one second. Gray, I'm teaching a class, buddy. Okay, can you be quiet? Okay, thank you. And then you have those things to draw. You have to draw for your class, okay? Okay, sounds good, buddy. Thank you. You want to say hi? Okay. Okay, it's fine. And look, 86 people voted. These are Shall Have It kids. 86 people voted, and 70 of them said, when it comes to security, I support racial profiling. Guys, like, well, if it's for safety reasons, then I support systematic racism. And I know Israel does this, and enough people have told me Israel racially profiles at the airport openly. You don't think this is a danger? Okay. Well, Mr. Roosh, it's also dangerous to be ignorant to these patterns that I see in society and blah, blah, blah. You're okay. Yeah, so pick your danger. Right. It's dangerous too. If you see, whatever, some, brown guy or something like that with tattoos on his neck and, where it looks like a gangster or something like that, and you go, you know what? I don't want to be racist, so I'm not going to go to the other side of the street. And then you get robbed, you're going to be mad. You'll be like, oh, trying not to be racist, and I got robbed. I should have just been a little racist and gone to the other side of the street. This is the stuff that you go through in your head. So I'm not saying that this stuff is easy. I'm saying that it's a dangerous thing to not to any kind of blindly support something that is systematic, official racism. Yeah, what's up, Malone?
How you were talking about Israel, when I had an 8th grade senior trip, I got pulled over and checked because I had the stamp that I went to Morocco on my passport.
Yeah. So that might not be racial, but it might be like, okay, so, or maybe it was, I don't know, but like it could be like just based on where you're from. Like it could be based on who you support. I mean, that's the thing. That's why you bring up Trump stuff a lot, is because 70 million Americans voted for Trump. So if you say Trump supporters are white supremacists or bad or terrorists, now you're lumping. That's like, I mean, you could very easily put together a thing to say, well, there are a lot of bad people that support Donald Trump. Well, yeah, there's a lot of black people that commit crimes. There's a lot of Jewish people that do shady things in the, financial sectors and stuff like that. So what? So what? Then now you're saying it's okay to be anti-Semitic based on a few? It's okay to be racist against black people based on a few? I mean, look at the crime statistics. That's what racists do. They look at the crime statistics. They say, oh, well, look at these black communities. Look what's going on. And that's what justifies it. So if you're going to do that with, Biden support Black Lives Matter people, they love burning down buildings. Well, no, 96% of them were peaceful. Yeah, well, there was enough of them to know that Black Lives Matter is bad. So you're taking a small group and then you're ramping that up to cover the whole group. That is literally what racism is. Everyone is part of that group. Got to be very careful. This was the Oklahoma City bombing. It happened when I was in 6th grade. I blew up the Oklahoma City Federal Building, and they started looking for some sort of, foreign terrorist. And the guy who did it was this guy. Looks like me. Okay? And they didn't see Timothy McVeigh because they weren't really looking for him. They were looking for, someone from the Middle East. The New York Times, the Daily Beast, The Intercept, they show that roughly 26% of terrorism is by Muslims, where 71% are domestic right-wing extremists. All right. So last thing I'm gonna end with is this. This is, sorry, hopefully this doesn't go over, but I want to play this. Here we go. This is a song. I know we're almost out of time, but just sit tight. We have town hall. It takes a little bit to get town hall going. Here, check out this song. See if I can get it. This is a song called Kenji by a band called Fort Minor. Here we go. Let's see if I can get this. It's pretty cool. And then go right from here to town hall. Here we go.
My father came from Japan in 1905. He was 15 when he immigrated from Japan. He worked until he was able to actually build a store.
Let me tell you a story in the form of a dream. I don't know why I have to tell it, but I know what it means. Close your eyes, just picture the scene as I paint it for you. It was World War II when this man named Kenji woke up. Ken was not a soldier. He was just a man with a family who owned a store in LA. That day, he crawled out of bed like he always did, bacon and eggs with wife and kids. He lived on the second floor of a little store he ran. He moved to LA from Japan. They called him immigrant. In Japanese, he'd say he was called Issei. That meant first generation in the United States when everybody was afraid of the Germans, afraid of the Japs, but most of all afraid of a homeland attack. And that morning, when Ken went out on the doormat, his world went black, cause right there, front page news, 3 weeks before 1942, Pearl Harbor's been bombed and the Japs are coming. Pictures of soldiers dying and running. Ken knew what it would lead to, just like he guessed. The president said the evil Japanese in our home country would be locked away. They gave Ken a couple of days to get his whole life packed in 2 bags. Just 2 bags. Couldn't even pack his clothes. Some folks didn't even have a suitcase to pack anything in, so 2 trash bags is all he gave them. And when the kids asked Mom, where are we going? Nobody even knew what to say to them. Ken didn't want to lie. He said the U.S. is looking for spies, so we have to live in a place called Manzanar, where a lot of Japanese people are. Stop it, don't look at the gunmen. You don't want to get the soldiers wondering if you're gonna run or not, because if you run then you might get shot. Other than that, try not to think about it. Try not to worry about it being so crowded. But someday we'll get out. Someday.
As soon as war broke out, so the FBI came and they just come to the house and you have to come. All the Japanese have to go. They took Mr. Lee. People couldn't understand why they had to take him because he's an innocent laborer.
So now they're in a town with soldiers surrounding them. Every day, every night, look down at them. From watchtowers up on the wall, Ken couldn't really hate them at all. They were just doing the job, and he wasn't gonna make any problems. He had a little garden, vegetables and fruits that he gave to the troops in a basket his wife made. But in the back of his mind, he wanted his family's life saved. Prisoners of war in their own damn country, what for? As time passed in the prison town, he wondered if he'd live it down if and when they were free. The only way out was joining the army, and supposedly some men went out for the army, signed on, and ended up flying to Japan with a bomb. That 15-kiloton blast put an end to the war pretty fast. 2 cities were blown to bits. The end of the war came quick, and Ken got out big hopes of a normal life with his kids and his wife, but then they got back to their home, and what they saw made him feel so alone. These people had trashed every room, smashed in the windows and bashed in the doors, written on the walls and the floor, Japs not welcome anymore. And Kenji dropped both of his bags to the sides and just stood outside. He looked at his wife without words to say. She looked back at him, wiping tears away, and said, someday we'll be okay, someday. Now the names have been changed, but the story's true. My family was locked up back in 42. My family was there where it was dark and damp, and they called it an internment camp.
When we first got back from camp, it was pretty bad.
I remember my husband said, we're going to stay till last. Then my husband died before they closed the camp.
Okay, that's it. I thought that was pretty powerful.